Your Ford feels perfectly normal, no lights, no noises, nothing weird at all. But somehow the fuel gauge is falling faster than it used to. What if a small sensor buried in your exhaust could quietly cut your fuel economy by 20 or even 30%? And what if it could do all that without ever triggering a warning light on your dashboard? Let's take a closer look at the real culprit. What if I told you a tiny sensor, no bigger than your thumb, might be secretly burning through your gas money? Yep, the oxygen sensor. That little guy sitting in your exhaust could be quietly telling your engine to dump extra fuel, even when nothing seems wrong. Here's the thing. Modern Fords, whether it's an F-150, an Explorer, or a Mustang, depend heavily on these oxygen sensors to keep everything running efficiently. They're tucked into the exhaust system, usually 2 to 4 of them, depending on the engine. One set sits before the catalytic converter, and another sits after it. Their job? Simple in theory, but critical in practice. They measure how much unburned oxygen is in the exhaust and send that data to the car's computer dozens of times every second. But why does that matter so much for your wallet? Because your engine computer uses that data to decide exactly how much fuel to inject. The goal is a perfect air-fuel mix, 14.7 parts air to 1 part fuel. That's the sweet spot where the engine makes good power and wastes as little fuel as possible. When the sensor is fresh, everything stays in that sweet spot. But after about 60,000 to 100,000 miles, pretty normal mileage for a lot of daily drivers, the sensor gets slow, not dead, not broken, just lazy. Like that coworker who technically shows up, but doesn't actually do much. And what happens when the sensor gets lazy? The engine computer plays it safe. It assumes the engine needs more fuel, so it enriches the mixture. That means more gasoline than necessary, lower fuel economy, and more trips to the pump without any warning lights to clue you in. Now, it doesn't usually fail all at once. It just gets slow. Over time, carbon, oil ash, and sulfur build up on the sensor tip. Think of it like a thermometer wrapped in a blanket. It still works, but the readings come late and not very accurately. A healthy O2 sensor constantly flips between rich and lean signals, sometimes dozens of times a second. That quick switching helps the engine computer keep the fuel mixture perfect. But when the sensor gets sluggish, the computer gets nervous. Running lean can damage the engine, so the system plays it safe and adds more fuel than needed. That's when your MPG takes a hit, often by 15 to 30%. So that F-150 that used to get around 20 miles per gallon suddenly drops to 14 or 15. And here's the sneaky part. The check engine light might still stay off. No warnings, just more gas receipts. But how can you actually see this problem before it shows up on the dashboard? Fuel trims. Your car's computer constantly adjusts fuel delivery. Short-term fuel trim handles quick changes, while long-term fuel trim stores the patterns it's learned. Normally, those numbers stay close to zero, but with a lazy sensor, long-term fuel trim can climb to plus 20 or plus 25%. That basically means your engine is dumping extra fuel all the time and still not complaining about it. For the average US driver doing about 12,000 miles a year, that could mean $200 to $400 more in gas annually, and that's per sensor. And if you ignore it, what's the worst that could happen? The extra fuel doesn't just disappear. It burns inside the catalytic converter, overheating it and melting the ceramic core. Suddenly, that $100 sensor problem turns into a $1,500 catalytic converter replacement. You might even notice a rotten egg smell or black smoke from the exhaust. That's the engine basically waving a white flag. On top of that, the car feels weaker, idles roughly, and hesitates when you try to accelerate. Ignore it long enough, and you're stressing the entire engine. And all of this started with one slow, lazy sensor. Quick pit stop. If this video is already saving you a trip to the gas pump, hit that like button so more Ford owners can find it. And if you're the kind of person who'd rather fix a $100 sensor than a $2,000 catalytic converter, go ahead and subscribe. Now, you don't need a fancy mechanic's garage or a $1,000 scan tool to catch a lazy O2 sensor. Most of the time, the clues are right in front of you. You just have to know where to look. So how do you spot a bad oxygen sensor before it turns your wallet into a crime scene? Start with the simplest tool in the world, your fuel gauge. Track your MPG over a few tanks. If you suddenly see a 15% drop without changing your driving habits, that's a big red flag. Your truck didn't suddenly get thirsty for no reason. Now, if you want to play detective, grab a basic OBD2 scanner. They cost about the same as a dinner for two, around $20 to $50. Plug it in, check your fuel trims, and you'll see what the engine computer is really thinking. Short-term fuel trim should bounce around near zero. Long-term should stay within about plus or minus 10%. If you're seeing numbers like plus 15 or plus 20%, your engine is basically saying, yeah, I've been dumping extra fuel for a while now. And that's usually a lazy sensor. But what if you don't have a scanner yet? Are there any real-world driving signs? Absolutely. You might notice a slight hesitation when you accelerate, a rough or uneven idle or weaker passing power on the highway. Nothing dramatic, just enough to make you think, this used to feel stronger. Short trips, oil leaks, or coolant contamination can speed up sensor wear. Most of them last between 60,000 and 100,000 miles. After that, they're basically in retirement, still showing up, but not doing much work. Okay, let's say you confirm the sensor is bad. Do you really need an expensive repair? Not at all. Good aftermarket sensors from brands like Denso, Bosch, or NTK are reliable and usually cost between $60 and $150. OEM motorcraft sensors cost more, but they're plug and play and guaranteed to fit. Just avoid those cheap universal ones that require wire splicing. They're basically future headaches in a box. And if you're even slightly handy, you can replace them yourself. Let the exhaust cool, unplug the old sensor, spray some penetrating oil, and remove it with an O2 socket. Thread the new one in, reconnect everything, and you're done. Most people can knock it out in an hour or two without even lifting the truck. You've swapped the old oxygen sensor, tightened everything down, and now you're expecting instant results. Better MPG, smoother throttle, maybe even that satisfying feeling of beating the system. But hold on, what if I told you the job isn't actually finished when the new sensor goes in? Because your Ford's computer still thinks it's living in the old fuel-wasting world. The PCM, the powertrain control module, needs time to relearn the new sensor's data before your fuel economy comes back. Start the process by letting the engine idle for about 5 to 10 minutes once it's at operating temperature. Don't touch the gas. Just let it sit there. This helps the computer build a fresh baseline with the new sensor. Then comes the part most people mess up, how you actually drive after the repair. For the next 20 to 50 miles, drive like a calm, responsible adult. Not like you're late for a Fast and Furious audition. Do some gentle neighborhood driving, light accelerations up to about 30 or 40 miles per hour, and smooth decelerations. After that, hop on the highway and cruise steadily around 45 to 55 miles per hour for about 15 minutes. No wide open throttle, no hard launches, no short 5-minute trips. The computer needs steady, predictable conditions to relearn fuel trims properly. By the next day, if you scan the car again, your long-term fuel trim should start drifting back towards zero. Full adaptation usually takes about 100 miles. And is all this effort actually worth it? Absolutely. Many F-150 and Explorer owners report saving $300 to $500 a year after replacing bad O2 sensors and doing the relearn correctly. A truck that dropped to 14 miles per gallon can jump back to 18 or more. That's real money staying in your pocket instead of disappearing into the gas pump. Want to keep it that way? Use decent fuel, fix oil or coolant leaks quickly, and check fuel trims once a year after 60,000 miles. It's a 5-minute scan that can save you a $2,000 catalytic converter later. So has your Ford ever started burning more fuel out of nowhere? Or did a simple sensor fix bring your MPG back to life? Drop your story in the comments. And if you're not an oxygen sensor secretly sabotaging your own wallet, hit that subscribe button. Now pick your next video. Our must-watch, never change your Ford's transmission fluid until you watch this. Or whatever YouTube thinks you're obsessed with. Your move.